Welcome to 5 Stripe Weekly, everyone. This week we give out our mid-season grades and we preview what could be another record-breaking performance coming against the Columbus Crew this weekend. All that and more, coming up.
Welcome to the show, 5 Stripe fam. I'm AJ, this is Tanner McLeod. Before we get into it, become part of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button. Because of the bye week this past week, we decided to do a little bit different this episode, and we decided that we're going to do our mid-season grades of all the players, the head coach, and the front office. And so it's going to be a grading scale out of 10, and our first player, or our first positions, are going to be the goalkeepers. And so, Brad Guzan, you know, our 1 through 10, what's your score for?
I gave him an 8. I think on the whole, you can't really complain too much. Sometimes he makes some saves look more difficult than he has to. But on the whole, you're not going to find too many goalkeepers better than him in Major League Soccer. I think his distribution's improved. I think the only glaring problem for him this year was that red card he got against SKC. Yep. That aside, I think he's been solid all the way around, and I can't really complain.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think 8's a fair grade for him. Yeah, the distribution, I think, is the thing that, you know, he didn't come in with, you know, having to do that a whole lot, having to play out from the back. And so, you know, he on the teams he's previously been on, it's been more having to shot stop a whole lot.
Yeah,
and,
Villa, Middlesbrough, that and picking the ball out of the back of his net.
Right.
Usually it was, when you get the ball, just hoof it long and get rid of it.
Exactly. So, you know, there are criticisms, of course, you know, but, you know, I think in terms of his, you know, overall package, I mean, he also hasn't had to make too many saves this year because, well, you know, we've been up or we've, you know, had just maybe 3 shots on goal against us, so it's not been too heavily against him. So yeah, I think 8 is a fair score for him. Moving on to Alec Can, I think he's essentially, I think, a 6.5. Like, yeah. You know, it's not like he
it's
hasn't
not much him. It's just like, yeah, I mean, he played. I thought he played relatively well in his one game, you know, against Orlando. Let's set that aside.
The U.S. Open game,
he
looked pretty decent.
He looked decent. I haven't really taken the U.S. Open Cup too much into account on this, mostly because they didn't really go far enough for me to get too fussed about it. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. He did well in the one game in a difficult environment that I really consider. Yeah. So, you know, 6.5. He hasn't done a lot. If he played more, I'd give him a higher grade. It's no slight on him. But yeah, I think he's been solid. He's a decent backup. I mean, can't really complain about that.
Yeah, especially I mean, with how steady he was last year before he got injured and before Brad Guzan came in. So yeah, I mean, I wish he got more playing time, but it's just where. So
it's not exactly a position you rotate. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course we have Mitch Hildebrandt, who we also signed in the offseason from FC Cincinnati. Pretty much he hasn't played, so, you know, I think it's a NA for him. He doesn't really get a score, but it is kind of, you know, when we needed him, he wasn't available because he was injured. But and so then, of course, we had to call upon the young kid, Paul Christensen, the rookie from the MLS Super Draft from this past year. And so, you know, it's Hildebrandt could have, you know, featured maybe a little bit more, even at Atlanta United too. But it's, you know, it's one of those things. You know, backup goalkeepers when you know, when you really need them, like sometimes you get that case where they're just not around. But you know, it's not anything in his control, obviously. But you know, I think I probably don't stand alone in wanting to see a little bit more of Hildebrandt in the future because you know, seeing all those highlights of him being able to stop.
He clearly showed he could be a decent
shots,
keeper.
Yeah.
So, you know, if he could just stay fit and maybe get some action at Atlanta too, and who knows what could happen in the future, you know, with injuries or whatnot. So,
exactly. Yep.
You know, I don't think he's had enough chances, but we'll see what happens with him in the future.
All right. And moving on to our defenders. First up is Greg Garza, left back. And what do you think?
I gave him a 6.5 as well. He has played a decent amount of games. I didn't think he necessarily played well in those games, but that being said, the big caveat to everything I'll say about Greg Garza is he was carrying an injury that clearly was hampering him the whole time. Yep. He got a surgery in May. Hopefully he's back by the playoffs. So 6.5 is a bit because he wasn't great in his performances, but again, that being said, he was clearly injured the whole time. The fact that he gutted through it to begin with is incredible. It shows you know, mentally where he's at and how much he wants to fight for the team. So I could rate him higher, but I could rate him lower. I think 6.5 is fair for him, you know, and hopefully he's back and, you know, turns in some good performances because God knows we need more fullbacks that are fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely very thin in that regard at the moment. I would agree it's a 6.5. Yeah, he's definitely shown how much of a warrior he is by gutting through it, and you know, I think though, you know, it's curious the timing of the surgery. I understand probably from the contract situation standpoint, why he wanted to wait it out, because I mean he got a nice, you know, extension, and he you know, essentially got you know, it was a loan originally with Tijuana, and then now we bought him, and so yeah, I think it worked out for him, you know, in terms of his financial and, you know, personal standpoint. But I think from our standpoint, you know, it probably would have been better if we had a fit Greg Garza. But you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. But I mean, when he is fit, like last season,
yeah,
you can see what he does. You don't have too many left backs doing that in the league, and if they do that, they do it consistently, they're going somewhere else. Alphonso Davies is a fullback, obviously. He plays on the right, I believe, instead of the left. Does he play on the left?
Yeah.
Oh, well, shows you how much I'm paying attention. But I mean, he's a special player who's not really a fullback, so
absolutely.
There's not too many. You don't get too many guys who can give you going forward what you get from Greg Garza when he is fully fit consistently. I mean, his one big glaring issue, I guess, would be defensively, but I mean, that's also inherent with how Atlanta would play.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, he does get fit. I know that he's recovering. We saw in the Josef video last week on Instagram that he's getting better. Having him gives you just another option, which is completely different from McCann. You have one that's a lot more defensive, one that's a lot more, you know, offensive. Going into the playoffs, you know, having him come back fit would just be an absolutely huge bonus for this team.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of McCann, I think, you know, he's really performed really well this year, like stepping in at left back, stepping in at left wing back, and also as a left-sided center back. And also not even to say a little bit of, you know, midfield, which isn't his strongest point at this point in time. So I think for me, you know, defensively as a defender, I give him a 7.5.
Yeah, I just give him a solid 7. I mean, no more or less, this is a guy that just goes about and does his job, and he does it really well. Maybe sometimes it's not too glorious. It doesn't seem like he's pulling off the highlight stuff, but he does a job, and again, he does it well, and he's a solid player to have, and you can't be unhappy with that, especially in this league when you have a solid player who can play really in a few positions across the back, which is what Atlanta United have needed. So a solid 7 for me, and I think he's been an important player to this team so far.
Yeah, and it's definitely a surprise in terms of, you know, he's on a huge contract essentially, and last year he wasn't used as much, but now I think this year he's at least warranting the contract that he has because of his utility and you know, the steadiness that he offers. So I'm a little bit more okay with his contract on the team now, and you know, it's better for it. Next up is Mikey Ambrose. I think he's had very solid time at left back and left wing back, and yeah, I'd give him a 7.
Yeah. 7 for me as well. Solid player. 7 for people who aren't, you know, they're getting new into the whole thing. 7 is that if you can have a 7 rating, that's solid. That means you had a good game, you're doing a good job. Most places, any rating site, you do 7, you're doing a good job. So when we're giving a 7 and it's like, oh, why is it not higher? That's because they're doing a really good job. You really don't get higher than that unless you're an outstanding performer. Like, say, Josef Martínez, who we'll get to later. A 7, I think he's done really well this season. It's a shame that he's gotten hurt, because I thought he really offered something different, a little bit more attacking than a McCann going down the left. I thought left wing back suited him actually really well as a position. And it's just so frustrating to see just another player like that, you know, go down with an injury when I thought he was performing really well, and he stepped in when he needed to and did well in those games, with the exception of maybe Philadelphia. He wasn't great, but on the whole, I think he's been a solid player to have, and just another shame, like I said, to lose a fullback to an injury. Yeah,
definitely. And moving on to another person that had an ACL injury as well is Sal Zizzo. I think, unfortunately for me, you know, he's solid defensively, but I think it's a matter of what he offers going forward, especially in Tata Martino's system, which is, you know, you have to offer a lot because, I mean, you know, that's just how we play. For me, I think it's a 5.5. It's just not a ton, and when he has come on, it's just kind of lackluster.
Yeah, I gave him a 5. He hasn't played a lot. When he has played, I haven't really seen too much that's offered from him. And it's like you said, it might not necessarily reflect on him as a player, but as much of a player in a system that might not suit him. Sure. I think originally he was probably signed more of as a cover to just have that extra depth there, and now unfortunately he is injured, and that's a shame because you don't want that for any player. I think he was okay defensively, but as a fullback, he doesn't have the pace. He didn't have the ability to get up and down. I just didn't think he was all that great and added too much to the team when he was there.
Yeah, agreed. Now, next as our starting right back is Franco Escobar, and I know you'll probably have a few things to say about Franco Escobar, but for me, I think it's a 7. I think I think he's met my expectation of what I wanted him to be when he came into this team when he was signed in the offseason. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that bombs down the right a ton. Yeah, it may be a little bit suicide defending at times, but I think he's exceeded my expectation of the heading the balls. He's actually very solid on this team, one of the leaders in that category. And so we definitely needed that. We need somebody to be able to at least, head some of those defensive balls out of the way. Yeah, and, I think he's been solid, if not really too spectacular, but he's been a solid guy in our defensive line.
I would give him a 6.5. For me personally, he's a nightmare positionally, and I find myself multiple times every single game asking myself the question, what are you doing and why are you where you're at right now? Like, why are you at the top of the 18, at the D, and it's like, you were a fullback, you're not playing for Pep Guardiola, nor are you good enough to be there. What's happening right now? I think as a right-sided center back, he's much better, and I think moving forward, especially if you see, Parky moving on, I mean, let's be honest, he is getting up there, but we'll get to him because I think he's been amazing. I think that he would be very well suited to slip into that role as a right-sided center back. I think that suits him more. I think fullback, at times, like I said, he lacks the positional discipline to play that and to cover that ground. As a defender, as a header of the ball, I think he's done very well. I think he's shown places where he can improve, but he's also shown a lot of potential, and I think that he is a player that will be with this team for a while, and I think that he will continue to develop into a very, very solid defender for this team, although I just don't think it'll be as a right back in the future if they can find someone who's more of a fullback to play that position than he is.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So next person is Miles Robinson. When he's featured, you look, like the future, really, and he's looked really good. Especially defensively, and especially during that match against LAFC. But I think overall, in the recent matches, it's been a little bit it's stop and start when you are coming in at the latter part of games when you don't really have a whole lot of run of play in MLS matches. So I think for me, it's a 6.5. He's done decent, especially early on, but recently I think, yeah, he needs to maybe pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, I give him a 6, and I think that's more reflected on the amount of game time he's gotten and the situations he's been put into. I think that potential-wise, I agree with you. He has shown that he can absolutely be a center back for this team going forward for a long time. He just gives you another option at that center back spot. I don't think he's a fullback either. I think he's been played in that position, but that's definitely not going to be his position moving forward. He has the potential to be a very, very good player, but like you said, I think that a lot of it has to do recently with the situations he's been put into, and they haven't been beneficial for him, and I don't think he's been put in at the right times in order to have the best effect on the game. I think that giving him the right opportunities at the right times is important for his confidence, for him to learn, for him to get better. But I agree with you. I think potential-wise, again, he's shown that he's a very talented player, and he could just be another really good player out of that first super draft that Atlanta United had. And I'm excited for what he can do in the future. Yeah,
indeed. And next up is LGP, our man who loves a slide tackle, but also, I mean, so silky with his feet, and yeah, I mean, he's gotten 7 yellow cards this year and 1 red card, but it's the style of play that Tata Martino wants in the system. He wants a guy who is really good on the ball in the back line, and he offers that. He offers that diagonal ball. He offers like dribbling throughout the. Sometimes he'll step up and dribble out of defense, past midfield. Sometimes get in the box. I mean, so it's a guy that he offers a lot for us. I mean, defensively here and there, yes, there's definitely some head scratchers. Houston Dynamo game, of course, and here and there peppered across
Minnesota.
the season. Yeah, peppered across the season. But I think throughout the season he's still been very solid, especially in Tata Martino's system. So I think I give him an 8.
I give him an 8 as well. I agree with you on pretty much everything you said. Yeah, does he have some defensive issues? Of course he does. But I think a lot of that comes to the territory of playing a center back in Tata Martino's system, where especially when Atlanta United lose the ball, they can be stuck in one-on-one situations against very, very quick players. And I think that's the reason why both he and Michael Parkhurst have gotten more yellows than they have in their careers before, is because they're getting put in situations where they're not comfortable, and it happens. And sometimes you have to make a professional foul, get that yellow card so the other team doesn't have a clear attack, and that happens. For me, LGP, I think he's a perfect center back for the system that Tata Martino plays. He's incredibly gifted with his feet. He has the ability to play these 50, 60-yard diagonals all the way across the field, which you don't get from really any center back in this league. His defensive lapses, I think, is one of the reasons why he is in this league. Because if he was as strong defensively as he was with the ball at his feet, he would not be playing in Major League Soccer. Because I really cannot say enough how incredible he is with his passing and with even his dribbling when he's dribbling into the final third. Sometimes I wish that he wasn't doing that, but at the same time, he has the confidence and the aggression and the ability to say, I'm going to try to make this run. I have this lane, and he takes it to him, and that makes teams adjust, and it makes players draw to him. And if he can find a pass, then that's something that that Atlanta United can use. And I think sometimes, especially in games at Mercedes-Benz, I like it when he runs forward and does that, because it gives a little bit of spice to the team. The teams are like, what's going on? This crazy person's running at us. What's going to happen next? So I'd give him an 8 as well. I think he's been a really solid player, and I love him. I think he could be a captain moving forward as well.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, early on he brought that type of intangible when Ezequiel Barco was first coming in. He was welcoming him and brought him into the team setup very, very quickly. You heard reports of how just welcoming he was to new players, and in Eric Remedi as well, and Franco Escobar. So yeah, I mean, he's got that friendly and calming presence that really brings in some of the more Latino players into the club. So moving on to the last defender, of course, our captain Michael Parkhurst, and for me, he's been our steadiest defender this year. He, there were questions last year where people were like, what does he really offer the team in terms of, defensively? I think people didn't really see what he can really do, and, he really mentors the younger players, especially even during games. And I think, without him in the lineup, you really see the difference. And that the few instances that we've had where we didn't have him in the lineup, it's glaring. So for me, he is 8.5. He is by far our best defender, and yeah, I mean, if it weren't for our stellar attackers, he would be getting like man of the match every single time. I
would agree. I think he's an incredible defender. His positioning is amazing. As a captain, he is incredible. Yeah, I mean, 8.5 is easy. He's picked up, more yellows than he has at any other point in his career this year, but like we've said, they got about LGP. That comes with the territory of playing in a Tata Martino style system where you're going to be put in those positions. I mean, it's going to happen. But aside from that, everything you just said, absolutely. He's just an incredible player, great person as well, great person in the community. All around an incredible player to have as the captain of Atlanta United, and I couldn't be happier that he's on this team and that he starts every single game at right side center back.
Yeah. The only thing I don't rate about him is his Ken Nugent commercials. So, but I think when you do local commercials, it's just the way it is. So.
It is the way it is. Agreed.
But so moving on into our midfield, new boy Eric Remedi. He's played 2 matches as of this podcast, and so I feel like giving a rating is really just you know. But if you're gonna force my hand, I think it's a 6.5. He's looked really, really good, but I still think it's too small of a sample size. But I mean, what he offers, pretty much like Carlos Carmona 2.0, but maybe a better passer, probably faster even. Yeah, I mean, looks like a stud. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. 2 matches is really hard. I like to have at least 5 to 10 to really see how he's playing. If I was just to give him a match rating based upon the 2 matches he's played, I'd probably give him a 9 in each, give him a 9 on the whole. I thought he was incredible against Toronto. I thought he was really, really good against Montreal. I mean, I was really, really impressed with his positioning and his ability to perfectly fit hand in glove into the 3-5-2. He was able to cover guys. I mean, if you go back and watch the Toronto match, there's so many times where when LGP takes that run forward, Hermeti immediately drops into that left-sided center back role. He immediately drops into defensive position, picks up the guy, sees what's happening, can break up danger. Carlos Carmona 2.0, exactly like you said. I'm really excited about what this guy can do. It's only been 2 matches, but he looks an incredible signing so far, and I really think it's just another player in a midfield that has a lot of options and a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an embarrassment of riches in this midfield. Next up is Andrew Wheeler-Aminu. I mean, he hasn't played a ton, but what have you thought so far?
I'd say a 6, a solid 6. I mean, that's not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he's done well when he's played. He just hasn't played a lot, and I think he's another one of those younger players who, if played more, they could become a solid player. I think that the people in front of him are probably more talented than him, and I think he might just be a victim of the fact that he's playing for a team that has probably the deepest and most, options of any midfield in this league. So, that's not necessarily a reflection on him as much as this team is really, really good. And, maybe that pushes him to become a better player. Yeah. But we'll see what happens with him. But for now, just in his limited, just a 6. No harm, no foul, solid player.
Yeah, no, I think, we saw his versatility in the preseason a lot with him being able to play right back, him, also, of course, in the midfield. And so, I think he needs probably to develop the offensive part of his game, but I think defensively he looks already as strong as can be. And so, if we need a substitute later on in the latter part of matches and, our other midfielders aren't ready, I mean, he's a great guy to bring on, I think. So I agree. It's a 6 for me. And so next up is the free kick taking king, is Kevin Kratz. And I mean, I think early on in the season, he was giving more chances, especially it was almost like obligatory. He was just being brought on as the
75th to 80th minute. Yeah. Kevin Kratz was coming on every time, guaranteed.
But and especially when you need a late match free kick. I mean, he's what a perfect guy to bring on. It's just like you win a foul near the box. Absolutely.
He's getting the ball.
Yeah, he needs to take that. And, and so at one point he was leading, or he was like second in the team with goals just because of that Montreal Impact game alone. But, I mean, very solid guy who can control possession a little bit, can take your free kicks, can take your corners. Just a very, very useful guy to bring on, or even have as a deputy when you have a shortage in starters. So I think for him, I think solid, but somewhat also start and stop type of year where it's if you're coming on as a sub, you almost have to be an impact sub, or you maybe don't really see a lot of that. That in the box score. So I think it's 6.5 for me.
Yeah, I'd say not much more than everything you just said. 6.5 for me. Solid player, great free kick taker, great substitute to bring on, can control a match when you need him to. So 6.5.
Yeah, agreed. Darlington Nagbe is our next guy, and what a guy to bring on in the offseason. Just a stud in possession, and a guy that really solidified our midfield, and really we didn't really even miss Carlos Carmona for a minute, where it was like, he actually is offering something defensively as well, and with the pressing and with the tracking back, and so obviously he hasn't gotten a ton on the score sheet, but I think at one point he had one of the best stats for the final third ball. It's I think that speaks volumes of what type of player he is in Tata Martino's setup. So for me, very, very solid year so far, and of course, he's injured and, you know, hopefully back in September. But I think a 7.5 for me.
I give him a solid 7. I think that, unfortunately, that injury did cut into a lot of his playing time so far. Missing almost, what, a month and a half, 2 months now?
Yeah.
You know, it's tough. He's very, I love the guy. He's very, you know, gifted. He's very technically, you know, sound and everything. I think that I kind of expected a little bit more of him in terms of maybe assists that he could have picked up, just because I have a high expectation because I know what he can do,
right.
Especially in a team that scores as many goals as Atlanta United. I think that also that has to do with maybe the team wasn't playing as well as it could have, and I think that him coming back in, you know, could really help energize and revitalize his team. So I have him as a 7 now, but I think that when he comes back and if he's fully fit, I think that he can offer a whole lot to this team. And again, it's just another player that you can play in midfield. And I'll rag on all the time, but I'd love to see a 4-3-3 with him, Remedi, and Almiron in the central midfield. I think that going forward is absolute dynamite. So that's just me and my football manager playing too much, maybe, but I can't wait to see him get back. But yeah, solid 7 for me for Nagby.
Yeah, on paper that looks like just ridiculous.
Mostly because Remedi apparently can cover everything. So it's a bit aggressive. We'll see. Sure. Video games, FIFA. We'll try it.
Yeah. So next person up is Jeff Larentowicz, and you know, steady as ever. You know, the guy that you know, is just that defensive rock in midfield. You know, is really intercepting everything, and you know, is winning the headers that we really desperately need to be won. Because height and winning headers is not really a thing in this team, except for a few people. And you know, distribution really can't put a foot wrong most matches. I mean, just I think really solid player. I think, you know, 8.5 for me.
Yeah, I give him an 8. I mean, he's just an incredible player. A lot of the stuff, like you said, just it's not going to show up on the stat sheet. He does so much work for this team, though. He's a steadying presence. He's calm in possession. I mean, I'm so glad that the team re-signed him, and you know, doing whatever he did to keep him off getting drafted by LAFC was brilliant. Because again, you know, he's just an incredible player, and we're lucky to have a veteran like him who knows the league and knows how to play the game and can take care of other players, you know, in midfield. Just another Michael Parkhurst, but farther up the pitch.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so next up is Julian Gressel, Gresselmania, and he's had a hell of a season so far in any position that he's been deployed, whether it be at right wing back, right wing, midfield. Yeah, he's looked just surprisingly good. Not that, you know, my expectations were low of him, but he's just exceeded any of that expectation that we had, and I think of most fans. And he's had a ton of assists this year, mostly from that right wing back spot, and landing those balls right on Josef Martinez's head. And yeah, I mean, he's done that defensive work as well. I mean, you know, maybe the NYCFC game notwithstanding, I think very solid season so far. I think I give him an 8.
This is one of my higher ratings. I think Julian Gressel, like you said, has had an absolutely phenomenal season. I'm giving him a 9 because he has been asked to play in 3 different positions, and every single time he does not complain. He goes out and he puts a shift in. His crossing is absolutely incredible. I did not know that he had a cross on his right foot that's that good, and every single time he's going down the wing, he is a danger to put in an absolutely incredible ball into the box. I think that he could even play right back if given that opportunity or given that challenge, because he works so incredibly hard. I mean, his work rate is just out of this world when it comes to tracking back, especially when he was playing right wing back. I think he's having a hell of a season. I never would have expected this from this player. And again, that's not because we had low expectations, but I didn't know he was going to be this good, and he has just been absolutely incredible this season. One of the highlights by far, and again, a 9 for me.
Yeah. And the last of the midfielders, you can maybe call him a forward too, but we're going to stick him in the midfielders. And that's Miguel Almiron, and you know, the smiling assassin. He's been, I think, he's been steady this year, albeit, you know, maybe some of the stats were a little more, I don't know. I mean, they're slightly down from last year in terms of, you know, shots on goal, but in terms of the you know, goals and assists, he's actually on a better pace. But I think he offers so much defensively as well, tracking back. He also, you know, just runs the engine of this team, especially, you know, like, I mean, I think, you know, if there are any naysayers it's you know, if he's not in the game, I think you will see like what you're missing, and you know, I think for me, it's an 8.5. I mean, he's been stellar. If not, I mean, not spectacular, I think, but stellar this year.
For me, a bit lower. I'm going to give him a 7.5. I was a bit critical of him on last week's show, and I think, like you said, he is statistically having a good season. I think if you dig a bit deeper into that, he has a lot of shots, and about a third of them or less are on target, which isn't that great, and he only has 8 goals. I get that he's not an out-and-out goal scorer, and I agree with you. When he's not playing, you notice it because his turn of pace is incredible. That being said, he's the number 10. He is, as much as Josef Martínez scores goals, Miguel Almiron changes games. And he's the guy that when I really want someone to, you know, get that ball, run at someone, and absolutely take them to pieces, I expect that to be Miguel Almiron. I gave him a 7.5 because, like you said, he's been playing well, but I think he can do even better. I think that he needs to take those chances when he gets them, because if you have as many shots as he does, you should have more goals, in my opinion, because he has shot a lot. And I think that if he can improve that just a little bit and get a little bit more of them on target, I think he is an absolutely incredible player. And if he can improve that goal tally and improve his quality in and around the box to where it's paying off a little bit more, then he will get that move that he wants to Europe. And it'll be to a team that we all want him to go to. You know, a solid team, not like a West Ham or something. I'd never wish him to go to some club like that. I'm sorry if you're a West Ham fan, but honestly, you probably agree with me. So I want him to go to a club where he's going to succeed and play well. I just think he needs to play a little bit better if he wants to be able to have a good choice like that.
Sure. Yep. And moving on to our forwards, and we're going to go a little faster on these. Yeah, Brandon Vasquez.
5.
Yeah, I think 5 for him. He's really not had a ton of game time, and then when he's come on, it's not been as much of an impact of his last year. So, you know, I think he's just got to get his bearings underneath him. You know, and I think he's got the chance, you know, with a little bit more playing time. But yeah, next up is Romario Williams.
I'd say 6, 6.5, somewhere in there. I mean, he's actually he's made a difference when he's come on. He's got a goal. He drew a penalty against the Galaxy that kind of sealed that game away. I think recently people kind of been on his back. He hasn't really been put in great situations, very similar to Vasquez. I mean, but you're not going to play a lot when the guy we're going to get to in a second is 1 goal off the record and he has 10 games to play.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and so you know, I think for me, I think with the goals that he's taken, you know, they've been like, you know, really that good
that left-footed
goals.
One against LAFC was quality.
Exactly, and so you know, and then the rest of the time he's been asked to play a little deeper, which is not really kind of his MO, and so I think 6.5, you know, a decent guy to come off the bench, can make an impact, and you know, is a strong guy that can, you know, hold it up just a little bit and win a header if he needs to. So not a bad guy. Next up is Andrew Carlton, the homegrown player, and yeah, I mean, you know, he's looked so good every single time he's come on, in my opinion. You know, whether, yeah, there have been, you know, maybe a couple of shaky things here and there, I think it's all about his creation and, you know, what he really offers in that regard. That limited time that he's come on, it's always looked like we're more dangerous when he's come on. So for me, it's a 7.
Yeah, 7 for me. I think the thing that you can take about that is he young? Yes. Is he going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Is he confident? 100%. And that's the thing that you want to see from those guys at that age when they're breaking into the first team. Are they confident? Do they believe in themselves? Do they believe that they can put that product in? And you can't really look past the DC game where he takes a guy out and breaks his ankles and puts a great ball into the box that he doesn't get credit for an assist for, unfortunately, but it was a dangerous box into a dangerous cross into a dangerous spot, and Josef scores a goal. And he created that opportunity, and it just shows the confidence he has, and I think he has a very bright future with this club.
Right, and even the U.S. Open Cup, I know you're not exactly fond of that tournament as the moment, but yeah, he scored a banger from really deep.
Yes, he did.
So, you know, I think he's played well. I mean, at LA82, maybe not as much, but
I want him to get that first goal for the first team. If he can get a goal in MBS, that place is going to go absolutely mental for him.
Absolutely. I will be probably one of the loudest people screaming my head off. So, yeah, I really hope that happens. Next up is Tito Villalba. And, yeah, I mean, you know, he's been injured for a good bit of the season. But, I mean, you know, when he's come on, it's just nearly every single time he just looks so dangerous running with the ball.
Makes people look silly at least once a game.
Exactly. I mean, people sleep on his techers, but man, it's he is breaking ankles all the time. And I mean, I think early on, especially in that 3-5-2 when he was playing as the second striker, that looked so good. And unfortunately he got injured pretty shortly after that, but I think he's now rounding into form a little bit more. I think it's a solid 7.5.
I'll give him a 7. I think that he's a player that it's been stop-starting a bit for him because of his injuries earlier in the year. I really, really hope he starts playing on the left as long as Barco's out and everyone else is fit, not suspended, and they can play a 4-2-3-1. I thought he looked dangerous against Montreal. I think if you put him on the left, cutting inside onto his right, have Gressel on the right, being able to cross in, I mean, I think him on the left suits him because he gets the space of the wing, he gets to cut into that right boot, which we all know is an absolute rocket. I think you'll see his goal numbers go up if he plays there as well. He's a dangerous player. If he can find that form, I mean, good luck to teams because he's a player that is very, very dangerous and is very talented. So 7 right now, but that's another number, I think, another player that could drastically change in these last 10 games.
Yeah, agreed. And a player that's never afraid to have a pop from anywhere. And so I think we need that type of player on the pitch at any point because that's really how you get you catch the opposing defense on their heels because they never know when he's gonna shoot or do anything. Next up is Ezequiel Barco, and I think when he's been on the pitch, obviously he's been out of a few of the games now because of the benching by the team and Tata Martino. But I mean the creation of chances of running at defenses. It's been a decent year for him, I think, and I think he's maybe slightly underperformed some of the expectations, maybe because of his price tag. But I think still he's a young kid, and still learning the league and learning his teammates and learning the country as well. Obviously, you have what happened and transpired between he and a teammate perhaps, but I think on the field it's a solid 7.5. He's looked good while on the pitch.
I think it's a solid 7. He showed his potential, but he's also shown places where he's extremely frustrating. Namely, he holds onto the ball too long, cutting inside forever, and then losing it. But he has potential. He's shown his flashes. His finishes, in his goals against Chicago and Orlando were very, very well taken. Solid 7 on the field, negative $1 million off the field. But that's got to have to get figured out at some point in time. But if he can figure out a way to get back into the team and get back into the good graces of his teammates, I think he has a solid future. He's a very talented player, and we'll see what happens with that going forward.
Yeah, definitely. The very last player that we're going to talk about is
absolutely not the least.
Exactly, is Josef Martínez, and I think there's just not enough that can be said about him. So there's that preface, but breaking records all over the place. 6 hat tricks, breaking the MLS record. He's 1 away as of this video from breaking the tying the MLS record with 27 in a single season. And I think he's going to obliterate it, and he's going to set that bar pretty high. And not just that, he's offering a lot defensively. He's offering a lot with just kind of
his link-up play, his dropping deep,
exactly.
His time being on the ball. I mean, incredible player. You said pretty much everything. I can't say enough. He's getting a 10 for me because when you score a goal a game, I'm going to give you a 10 because as a striker, you're supposed to score goals. And every single time he steps on that field, he scores a goal. 10.
Okay. I'm going to give him just slightly a little less than that. I'm going to give him a 9. Because, he's maybe not offering as much, maybe like assist-wise in terms of the numbers. But and so that's maybe just what tacks it down just a little bit.
Don't care. But scores goals. Scores goals. Love the guy. I mean, I love the guy, and also has a face in FIFA this year.
Yeah, indeed, and that's very exciting because we in FIFA 18. Of course,
generic face.
Yeah, it's
FIFA 19 face. Especially when you're scoring this many goals, you deserve to have a face.
Agreed.
That man has a face. I'm excited to score a lot of goals with him when that game comes out. Especially if they have Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the game.
Oh yeah.
God,
There's a rumor that it is, and hopefully that is true. But yeah, and so that's it for the players. And moving on to the head coach, Tata Martino. I think solid adjustment of tactics from game to game, from personnel. I think he's developed some of the players that we wanted to see a little bit more out of as well. And I think the discovery of Josef Martínez, even as just a striker in this system, is just I think that speaks for itself. But yeah, and then us playing through Martinez as well. That's just a smart way. You feed the beast. And so for me, I think it's an 8.5. He is just he's done everything really that you could, except maybe a few head scratchers here and there. But that's just throughout the ebbs and flows of a season. No coach is going to be perfect. So
I'm going to give him an 8. I think for me, I'd agree with you. A few mistakes here and there. My only frustration with him, I guess, would be trying to figure out a different way to attack teams when they play at Mercedes-Benz. It's a lot of the same. It was a bit different against Toronto. Hopefully we see that against Columbus this weekend. We'll dig more into that when we get into the preview later in the show. But I think that the only thing I'd have would be, it's just lack of, it seems to be creativeness or an edge when it comes to figuring out a new way to get at these teams that are bunkering so hard when we play them at home. But aside from that, great manager, and I hope he renews his contract and stays here for a very long time, because he's the best in the league, and I absolutely love the guy.
Yeah. If there was one criticism that I had, and this would be one of a few, but it's this. I wish he would make substitutions a little earlier. Especially some guys that need more playing time, and you can see it. Especially we'll definitely see it in the end of the season, where if they don't get any playing time, they're not going to be able to come on and flourish. So we really need that, and especially it'll keep our guys more fresh as well. So. Tito always gets taken off, but I think some of the other guys maybe need to be taken off just slightly earlier, especially when we're out. So, and the last thing we're going to talk about is the front office, which they in the off season got a lot of the business done, which they addressed a lot of the issues, they let a lot of the possibly dead weight go as well, brought in some some great additions with Franco Escobar, with just a bunch of guys that I think we needed to shore up positionally. So, especially with now the Eric Remedi, mid-season, that move, it's just
also the getting a green card for literally everyone humanly possible to fill up. To get rid of international slots. For me, it's an 8. They've done really, really well. I think the only thing either of us could really complain on is maybe not signing a fullback. That aside, though, when you look at the product in the field, the players, the depth, the team they've assembled for the amount of money they've assembled it for, their total budget, payroll, is less than a lot of teams in the league, and they're outperforming them. Incredible. I think they've done a great job. Pat yourselves in the back, guys. I think we have the best front office. Unfortunately, we lost one of our guys to MLS Miami. We talked about that last week. We'll see what happens there, but I trust that they'll replace him and keep on going. We have a fantastic president, technical director, all the way through. Incredible front office. Right.
And so speaking of Josef Martínez, so we're gonna move on from our player ratings of the midseason grades. The head coach and the players, they all back him to just continue to score every single game, and yes, he's gonna break that record. And I just found this quote from Jeff Berlerowitz really, really interesting, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he said, what's he had, about 2 a game the past 2 games? How many games do we have left? Yeah, that's 20 more goals. It's astounding, honestly. It's the same guy. You look it up, and it's the same guy. Yeah, so that's I think that was a hilarious quote. He's obviously being very tongue-in-cheek, but it's if he did, that'd be insane. But
I'd love it.
Yeah, I think 10 more goals, man, that would be insane as well. But it's certainly possible. I mean, it's not without the
Who
realm
knows
of
with this
possibility.
guy?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, every single time he steps in the field, he could score a hat trick. Who knows?
Yeah. So, I think this, the last 10 games are going to be very, very intriguing for sure. So Tata Martino also had this to say about it, about his goal scoring prowess. He said, he won't stop scoring goals. There's no way to neutralize a number 9 when you have a team that supports our style of play. You look at FC Barcelona, you can't keep Lionel Messi from making 40 goals per season because there's a style of play that allows Messi or Luis Suarez to finish in the best conditions. Yeah, we play through Josef Martínez, and yes, there are worries that other players have kind of stopped scoring, but I think if we continue to just feed this guy, I mean, you kind of see it in a Barcelona team or a Real Madrid team that had Ronaldo. I mean, it's those guys get the bulk of the goals. So
yeah, I mean, the thing maybe that's different between those guys is the type of goals that they can score, because those are the best players on the planet. Yeah. The thing about Josef Martínez is he takes his chances when he gets them. Some of the chances he gets are very difficult, but a lot of the chances he gets clear space somehow because his movement is so good and the players know where to put the ball on, and you get a header at the back post, like I say against a Montreal, where he's not marked at all, or he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper and he can juke him out and finish coolly. I mean, he gets a lot of great chances in space where he has time and the ability to create an easy chance and put it away for himself because he's ruthless in front of goal. And I mean, like that's the style of the team, playing through him, putting him in those positions to succeed, and he's succeeding.
Guys, here's a really interesting graph that we wanted to bring to your attention, and it's the possession characteristics for each MLS team. And you can see that Atlanta United are really far up there in terms of the longest per possession with the ball, and NYCFC has the most passes per possession, and of course you see Red Bulls down there are the lowest for each, I think, as we would expect, and this comes from Elliot McKinley at Analysis Evolved, and yeah, I mean, I think this really just kind of tells the whole story almost of how each team kind of really plays in the systems that they do.
Yeah, I think that what's very interesting about this is it shows Atlanta to have the ball for the longest, but NYCFC still make more passes per possession. I think that kind of tells you the story a little bit of why Atlanta struggles at home as well, because they have the ball for long periods of time, but there's not as many passes per possession. You would think if we had the ball more, there would be more passing. However, a lot of the times players will linger, take 1, 2, 3 touches, eventually play it, same thing, and it slowly gets moved around over and over again. They hold on to the ball for a long time, but not a lot happens. That's kind of been one of my gripes, especially in the home matches. You don't see that as much on the road. I think we're a lot more incisive when we play on the road, because that space is there for teams, to get in behind, which doesn't exist when they play at the Benz, because teams basically park the bus and camp in the 18-yard box the whole game. So I think that's interesting. I think it also shows that in New York City, they're very, very clever when they have it, and I think you can see that whenever they play.
And guys, let's get into our goal of the month, which, there were some options for this, but it really only had to be one, and it was the team goal against Philadelphia Union, and just every single attacker was involved with it. I mean,
it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, play starts off with Barco, plays the ball into Josef, who literally draws everyone on that defense to him. He has the ability to do like some sort of a back heel type flick through to Miguel Almiron, who plays a perfectly weighted square ball to Tito Villalba to just poke it into basically what is an empty net. That was beautiful football. One-touch passing basically all around, happened so quick. Philly had no idea what was going on until they were picking the ball up out of the back of their net. It was incredible. I love watching it when a team can do that, and it's very difficult to be able to pull something off like that.
Absolutely.
It absolutely had to be goal of the month for me.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially walk it in, and for me, it might be one of our best team goals that we've ever scored, for sure. I can't really think of another one, so it's, I think that's it. So let's move on to our save of the month, and there were also some good options, but I think it's
once again
the one.
we agree.
Yeah, it's the Brad Guzan double save versus DC United at the Benz. From pretty much point blank range. I mean,
get that first save by getting his left hand up quickly to stop the first one, and then to get back again and stop the second one. I mean, he made some other saves, but none of them were this close, this quick. reacting that quickly and
Right.
saving our blushes a bit, because that would have made the game a little bit closer than it should have.
It really, really could have.
And again, going back to our player rating, solid player, and he has the ability to make some saves like that. Most players can't make them in MLS.
Yeah, agreed. Guys, we're gonna move on into the news in this past week, and Dirty South Soccer had this great article talking about Ezequiel Barco and essentially that whole situation that's still happening. And Tata Martino has said publicly now that he really still wants to essentially see if Barco can regain the trust of his teammates, and so in that time being, he probably will not play against Columbus, probably will not play until he decides that he's kind of learned his lesson. And so I think with what's happened, and of course it's still speculation on the exact details, but I think
Tata had some really great things to say, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he talked a lot about how the club culture comes before everything else. How obviously he wants to win, but if you prioritize winning over anything else, then you can't create that culture that this club wants to have, that it is a family from top to bottom, fans, teammates, staff, everyone. And he knows that, and he says that he has to do this because it's important, not just to him personally, because it is important to him personally. As the manager, he believes in this philosophy that the club is pushing. It has to be done, and you have to take wins and losses out of the equation and say, this is more than that. This is bigger than one player. This is bigger than 3 points. This is about the status and what this club wants to be. And if you start off early by letting this type of thing go, then that doesn't set a good precedent for your club, moving into the future. And I think it's amazing that both, the manager and the front office are on the same page about this. And it shows you that they do care about what this club means and what it represents, not just the community, but the league and to the world.
Yep. And in another great Dirty South Soccer article by Joe Patrick, they interviewed George Bello, and guy is a homegrown player. He's a tasty-looking left back that has a wand of a left foot. Has taken free kicks for the academy. As a left back, that's like just something a little unorthodox for sure.
See David Alaba at Bayern Munich.
Absolutely.
Left back, takes free kicks. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. He's not at a David Alaba level, but he, has the shades of someone like that, for sure. And what they had in their article was saying that he from a young age was as a 10 and 11-year-old playing as a striker. Some of his previous clubs in Georgia thought he was best utilized as a central midfielder, and I think he's found a home with Atlanta United as a left back, and he has the intentions of seeing his future as a left back. I think
we need left backs.
We need left backs. It's a player that we're going to see probably a lot more coming up in the next 10 games. And so
I really hope he gets a few chances, man. I really want to see just another young homegrown player, what they can do if given that chance at the first team level. And if you can have a good lead against someone, maybe against a Columbus at home this weekend, you get 2-3-0 up, something like that. I think it's a perfect situation to bring a kid like him on, where he can be put into a good position and hopefully bring him on when we have the ball with maybe more than like 5 minutes left.
Yeah, definitely. And but we did get to see him at Atlanta United 2 this past weekend, and so they were playing Charleston Battery. He got a first half of minutes, and so that's good under his belt. Get some fitness there. Unfortunately, Atlanta United 2 lost 1-0, and there was some good play from Andrew Carlton, but I think just when you have that lineup just continually come in and out of the continuity, you don't have the same players game to game. It's kind of the Atlanta United 2 result at this point.
It's almost like rolling out there with a Sunday League team going, who's showing up in the group text? And it's like, I might show up, and my mate's got another friend that can come along as well, just so we can get the numbers. When it comes to putting the team together, that's basically what it is, because you have no idea. Honestly, they've probably not even had the same 18 one time this season.
Yeah.
They've definitely not had the same 11, I don't think. It's just so much chop and change, and I think this year can also, not as much, we talked about how it's a learning experience for the players, but it could also be a learning experience to the club as to how they maybe want to run Atlanta United to moving forward, and maybe deciding, let's try to keep this group of players here, playing here through the whole season so they can get that consistency. Because can you improve? Yes, but also I think that something we have to talk about is if you're not playing consistently at a level and you're not getting a run of games, over and over and over again, you play one game, you don't play again for 3-4 weeks, you play again, maybe 2 games in a row, that won't give them the improvement that I think that we're looking for them to get from Atlanta United too. So I think this season's probably, because it happened very quickly, maybe they weren't completely prepared for how it was going to work. But I think moving forward, into future seasons, I'd like to see them try to keep more of a same, 18 to 20 guys playing there consistently, so they can, get that experience, play as a team, and then, get what they need in a more effective way moving forward.
Yeah. And they return to action on Wednesday, and so, that's August 22nd, and so you may have seen this already, and the game already happened, But it will be against FC Cincinnati, so the tests are, as tough as they can be.
That team's coming to MLS, so yeah.
And so it's again, that's a good test for them, and it'll be very interesting to see who plays in that match. But the next piece of news comes about that the academy has added 3 new coaches, and those people are Steven Glass, Diego Ordaz, and Omar Jaroun. And I think that pretty much can kind of confirm that Tony Annan, the academy director, is going to kind of really take on that director role and have people that he can oversee and kind of really build that academy part of Atlanta United even stronger than it already is. And so I think that's a good thing that we're seeing more hires in that part of the club.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. I mean, for some it might just seem like a little simple, oh, they hired 3 more coaches at the youth team level. But for me and any other one else that plays Football Manager here, that having as many coaches as possible in your academy is the best possible thing. And it's not just in video games, it is in real life. Atlanta United want to create an academy where they get not just the best kids from Atlanta, from Georgia, from the states around Georgia. They want to be a place where, if kids are good, they can go, I want to play there. Not just from 16s, 12s, and under. I mean, they had the new roster for the U12s came out today, I believe it was. More and more levels of that. I think that you're seeing a culture change in Atlanta with soccer as well. You have soccer in the streets. These young kids are going to get more opportunities to play. When you have more coaches who can be more specialized, give these kids more attention, and train them better, the academy will be better, the first team will be better, the club will be healthier for it. Having someone that can function as basically a head of development or head of an academy and that be their one job makes their job a lot easier because they can focus on who's playing well, who's not, who do you need to work on improving. It's awesome to see Atlanta United doing their academy like this. They're trying to model it and make it like those big European academies. And honestly, we're not going to see a lot of these effects now, 5 years from now. We won't see them probably 10 years from now and moving on from there before you start seeing these kids that have been playing for Atlanta United basically their entire lives. And when you start having that happen, the teams that can do that are traditionally the teams that become the best teams in their leagues. See a Barcelona, see a Bayern Munich, see Manchester United, see a Real Madrid. Those are the teams that produce these kids from a very, very young age, bring them all the way up, playing the same style all the way through, and that love and bleed for the club. And then when you get to the first team and they're playing at Mercedes-Benz in 10 years' time, they know what it means because they've been here long enough. They know what it means to put on that shirt and to wear that badge. And it might just be an academy, but for me, I'm really excited about it. And it just goes back to why I love this club so much, because they're trying to do things the right way and changing the way that things are done here. And I'm really, really, really excited for what they can do in the future. And having a team full of Andrew Carlton's playing out there one day, because he might be the first, but he certainly will not be the last. And maybe we have a bunch of South American guys playing for us now, which I love these guys. But in 10 years' time, half that team might be homegrown, and that's what I'd love to see. Yeah,
and they'll be multicultural, and of course, it could be anyone. It could be watching this video. So.
Yeah, exactly, and it can literally be anyone. And I think that reflects on the city of Atlanta, because there's so many cultures here. There's so many people moving here, which you see reflected in the fans of this club. And to see all these players that can be homegrown, that's incredible. And I mean, I think that's just it's Atlanta, it's the club, it's everything, and it's why I love this team so incredibly much.
Yeah, agreed. next piece of news is the Bakary Sagna update. We thought, in terms of Foot Mercado, they were saying that, Atlanta United were in negotiations. That turned out to be false. And, pretty much very shortly after, on transfer window deadline day, essentially he signs with Montreal Impact.
Shocking they speak French there.
Yeah, I know, right? And, he joins Remy Gard. I think there's maybe a Arsenal connection, a French connection, who knows? But either way, we weren't in on him, apparently, and that business got done pretty quickly there. And we were apparently in on Brooks Lennon from Real Salt Lake, but they didn't really want to sell him to us, and so, all right, we didn't pull in a fullback in the window, and I think we probably needed it, but we'll see with what we got in the system. So yeah, we're gonna go with what we got. But moving on into the MLS standings,
it's getting interesting.
It's getting very, very tight. I'm getting a little sweaty about it.
Honestly, yeah. I'm not too concerned about it. If we get into the table now, things are finally starting to look less and less silly when it comes in terms of games played. Red Bull are now only 1 game behind Atlanta United. They've been 3 or 4 the entire season. Unfortunately for Atlanta United, they are only 1 point behind them.
Exactly.
And if you look at their fixture list, pretty friendly. So they're going to pick up some points. I think Atlanta United will play them again up in New York. That'll be
a tough test.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say right now the winner of that game is, I think, going to win the Shield. I think they're going to win the East.
Very well could.
I think that's going to be the game that kind of decides who wins that, because it's a 6-pointer. I mean, if Atlanta United win, they get rid of that. You don't have to worry about that game in hand. You're going to put 3 points on them. Right. If Atlanta United lose, you're looking at a 5-point gap really to Red Bull, which is crazy considering the staff changes they've had, and it's frustrating. But that being said, if finishing second means we win the MLS Cup, I don't really care. But I think the thing that's really interesting is that you have 3 teams in Red Bull, in Atlanta United, and in New York City FC that are all going to be there or thereabouts to 70 points. A real title race, the likes of which I don't think this league has seen, at least in this style of play that these teams are playing, like in the modern era with these, the amount of fans they have now. I think it's great for the league. Obviously, I'd like to win it. But it's it's definitely getting rather tricky up in there.
Yeah, it's so tight that I think Rebels, they definitely have the advantage. I think also very interesting is DC United down there. I think they really have that shout for a playoff spot, especially with that ridiculous game against Orlando City this past weekend.
I will say that play from Wayne Rooney was absolutely incredible. Yeah. Like just to get away from Atlanta United for a second and not laughing at the misery of Orlando, but I am.
But we are.
That was absolutely incredible. I mean, why DC are sending up a goalkeeper when it's 2-2 in the 94th minute or whatever, I don't get. That's really dumb. But they lose the ball, and then Wayne Rooney bails them out, makes an incredible tackle, and then drops an incredible ball that somehow the shortest player on the field outjumps everyone for and scores. He is so short. How he won that header is beyond me. The play itself from Rooney was absolutely incredible. Had people around the world reacting to it, showing that Waza still has a little bit left in the tank. Hopefully he doesn't show up in Atlanta to travel up to Audi Field. Yeah,
I think our waste man of the week is Will Johnson.
Oh yeah, and, it's fantastic. I mean, he is a running meme. Actually, funny little anecdote here. I went up to Washington D.C. this past weekend to visit a friend of mine. And before, while my friend was working, I went and watched the Manchester United match at Lucky's Bar near DuPont Circle. Most of you know, I'm a Manchester United fan. Sit down at the bar. Guy to my right pulls out a card to pay for a drink. He's an Orlando City fan. Guy to my left, DC United fan. I'm just like, well, this is going to be awkward for the next 90 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I ended up having it. He was a good guy. It was good talking to him. And getting his views on the whole rivalry was very interesting. He is very much looking forward to Miami coming to the league because it will be more of a natural rival for them. He also was actually very frustrated with the fact that all the Orlando City fans threw trash on the field, and he said that originally he thought Will Johnson should have had a penalty, and then he saw the replay and thought, man, that guy's a joke. So he was a good guy to talk to, but it was just very interesting. DC United, Atlanta United, and an Orlando City fan walk into a bar, and we're all Manchester United fans, so clearly we hate ourselves.
Wow. Yeah, that joke writes itself for sure, and wow, the Orlando fan thinks that Will Johnson is a joke.
Well, for that particular incident, at least. Maybe not on the whole, but for that one, when he saw it, he was like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's hilarious. All right, but anyway,
we'll digress. Yeah, back to the team that we all care about.
Exactly, and we'll move on into our match preview for the weekend, and it is a 4 p.m. game against Columbus Crew at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's Sunday, and it's guys, it's gonna be a very, very hard game.
This is a big game for me. Yeah. For me, like this is when you talk about must wins. I haven't had very many this year where I'm like Atlanta has to win this game. This is a must-win for Atlanta United. They've been very good so far this season, coming off matches in which they've dropped points. Columbus, though, are no slouch. Yes, we beat them in the last match up in Columbus, but Yossi Zardes has 14 goals this season. Higuain has 7 assists, I believe. I mean, he's an incredible player as well. They're going to be dangerous. We know what they can do in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They have a very quality goalkeeper in Zach Steffen. They're going to play the same way they played in the playoffs. They're going to sit deep and play on the counter. And boy, do they have players that can do that. Not to mention they just added Almiron back. He's going to give them that much-needed ability on the wings that they've been lacking. It's a big game. Atlanta United, for me, have to win this game because they go on a 4-match road trip after this. And they do play well on the road, but they need to put a marker down at home against a good team. And with as frustrated as everyone was coming out of that Toronto game, off the back of a Seattle game, back of a Portland game, they have to get a result here, because if they don't do anything other than win, they're gonna have some pretty pissed off people leaving that building come Sunday around 7 o'clock. Yeah,
it won't be easy. I mean, Columbus Crew, they've played 2 away matches in their past 2 games, and no slouches. I mean, Houston Dynamo, who are very tough at home, they won 1-0. They played, Red Bull New York, and
that was a crazy game.
Yeah, that was insane. But they also won away there.
3-2. They can score goals, and they can score them on the road. I mean, this is an organized team, very canny operators all the way around. They know what they're doing. They will be up for it come Sunday. So,
and also, I mean, Tata Martino, he has in the past been vocal about how he admires their style of play, and so I think that's very, very that speaks volumes on just how well Columbus Crew can play when they're very on. So tough match, and I think that leads us into our formation and how we think we can kind of really dissect this team and break down their defense.
I think you and I are pretty much on the same page with this one.
Yeah, I think so.
I think 4-2-3-1, Escobar sliding back into that right back spot. I think we have to be aggressive with them. I think you got to be smart, or Remedi with a Lorenowitz in midfield to give you that balance, but also very strong defensively, which hopefully I think it'll be interesting to see what Remedi will do, because this will be the first time he would have started. Well, no, he started next Lorenowitz in Montreal, but this will be more of a different style of play against this team, I guess, because we're going to have the ball more, and I'm curious to see who out of those 2 pushes forward a little bit more, because when Nagby plays, obviously he pushes forward. When Gressel plays, he pushes forward. When Kratz plays, he pushes forward. Out of those 2, I'm curious. I think you might see a little bit more of that running from LGP that we talked about, because you always see Lorenowitz drop back into defense, but Remedi does the same thing. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think both of them will start. I think it'll give a very strong base in midfield to hopefully free up some attackers going forward. And God, please start Tito on the left.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, back to the Eric Remedi thing. I think he's the guy with the energy, with the work rate that's constantly going to be running. I think for me, he's that guy that's going to fill that Carlos Carmona role, where he's going to be that bulldog running around and pressing everybody. So, I mean, Jeff Lorenowitz definitely likes to sit back a little bit more and,
be that anchor.
Yeah, be that anchor, and I think that that probably works really well, against this Columbus Crew team. I think Bijalba on the left, Gressel on the right. I mean, I think it works really well, and I think against a Columbus Crew, it's a fashion in that we can really break them down doing this. So
I hope we move the ball quicker, like we did against Toronto as well. I mean, you saw it at flashes at times where they created some good chances. I think that's going to be something they're going to have to do, because they're going to be organized and they have a really good goalkeeper. So it's going to have to be something special to beat that guy when he's in net. So. They need to take what they did at Toronto and do it a little bit more, and I think they'll be in a good position to get the 3 points, which will take us right into our predictions for the match. And how are you feeling about this one, AJ?
Yeah, it's still I'm not feeling the best because, yeah, how well Columbus Crew are playing on the road against tough teams, and you know, they've kind of figured out how to play us, at least at the Benz, in that one game at least. But I think it's a 2-2 draw because, you know, they're a tough team.
Yeah, so. I get that. I'm going to be a bit bullish here. I feel that this team has to win. I feel that they know they have to win. I think that they're going to be up for it. They've had an extra week to prepare. They've had a really good record coming off matches where they haven't picked up 3 points. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, but I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult. That being said, I think Josef will at least tie the MLS record for goals in a season this week because he is just unstoppable right now. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Atlanta United, not only because I want it to happen, because it has to happen. They cannot drop points again at home, especially going on to a 4-match road trip. So I'm going to go for 2-1 for Atlanta United.
Yeah.
But talking about that 4-match road trip, it's actually going to take us into our question of the day. With only 10 games remaining, and there's only 4 more matches, including this Sunday at home, our question to you is, especially with things getting real tight at the top of the table now, how many points do you think Atlanta United will pick up out of their next 10 games? Get down in the comments below and let us know what you think. Curious to see what you got, see if anyone has us breaking the points record.
Yep.
I think we're going to end up right around 68 points or so, somewhere in there. I don't think we're going to get the record. I don't think we've been good enough at home. We'll see what we got going forward, but I think we're going to get right about 68 to about 20 points out of this 30 games.
Yeah, and with that many away matches, it may actually play into our hand. Maybe we get more.
Maybe we get more. Who knows?
But
yeah.
yeah.
I do hope we go for that record for points in a season on the road. That would be very, very nice to have.
Agreed. But guys, that's it for us today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. Share this video because it really does help us a lot, and smash that like button. And for Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching.